Awesome. Hello, everybody. Welcome back from that break. Hope everybody is having a good first day of Mar Dreaming. My name's Jordan. I'm with the Secante team. I will be moderating today's session with Chris. But before we get started, and while he's getting everything set up, just want to remind everybody of housekeeping items. As a reminder, all of these sessions are being recorded and will be uploaded roughly 24 hours later on demand. And then throughout the session, if you have any questions, you can throw them in the Q&A tab, and I will either potentially answer if I can, most likely not, or hold it so we can make sure Chris answers it live. But with that, I will pass it over.
Thanks, Jordan. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, depending on where you are watching from. My name is Chris Zullo. I am Practice Director at All Cloud for our Customer 360 and Marketing Cloud practices. And I will take you through an overview of what Data Cloud is and what's in it for me, and from a few different points of view. We'll say if there are questions, please don't be shy, chime in. Like to keep things as informal as possible, so no need to wait to the end per se. So Jordan will be looking at the question in the Q&A section, so please don't hesitate to reach out if you want to dig into something. All right, with that, let's see if we can progress here. There we are. First of all, thank you to all of our sponsors. As you see here, without their support, this would not be as smooth and fluid as it is. So big thank you to all the sponsors who are a part of Mar Dream in 2023. So our agenda, quite simply, is going to be what is Data Cloud, why Data Cloud, how to, and then a number of resources. And if you want to wait to the end, that's fine. But as I said, please reach out if you have questions throughout the session. So what is a Data Cloud? And for starters, just going to kind of keep it simple. In short, Data Cloud is a customer data platform. It is a lot of things, but by definition, the things that it does, it falls into the customer data platform or CDP, platform space. It does a bit more than the traditional CDPs have been known for, and so we're going to take you through what those aspects are. And so, at a high level, just to simplify things, it's about connecting your data, unifying it, and activating it. Obviously, there's a lot of twists and turns that we can take throughout that course, but at a high level, those are the three things that if I had to boil it down to, that's what it would be. So for some fun, I used ChatGPT in Bard to define what a CDP was for me. And so just to kind of take you through this, the first take, when I asked Bard what is a CDP, as you can see, it did not give me the correct answer, or it did not give me the answer I was hoping for. So when I spelled it out and asked for what the definition is of a customer data platform, it not only gave me an accurate response, but it also immediately truncated it into CDP. So just to understand, context matters. And the reason I mentioned AI right off the bat is AI is dependent on your data. Your data is a lot of information, has a lot of information, but context matters. And so lastly, I did the same question with OpenAI, and similar to the first question, the first attempt with Bard, it got it correct on the first try. So just for a little fun there, just wanted to kind of share that as I went through the process of creating this session. Just want to have a little fun with that, and hopefully you found that amusing as I did. So the evolution of the CDP, which, like I said, the Salesforce Data Cloud happens to fall into. We kind of have three main errors here. You have, CRM 1.0, which was primarily for sales. And then as we progressed forward a decade or so, it started to expand to incorporate more aspects like sales, marketing, and service in addition to sales. And then where we are right now, it is more for the entire organization, not just marketers, which CDPs have traditionally been known for. The source of, I think, every image and reference in this deck are in the deck. So, you can trace back to the image and any corresponding details related to that from the original source. But just kind of give you that context of where we started and how we got to where we are, to set the table, and then getting into why we're here. How does the data cloud work? So as I mentioned, connect, unify, and activate. As we start to break that down and get deeper into the weeds, we kind of have these major sort of swim lane or columns, if you will, where we have all our sources on the left, and we start to feed that into the data cloud. And so there's a couple of the main points. The batch is, as you might expect, more scheduled, static, big bulk type of data transformation, whereas streaming is more that near real-time communication, API connection where data is coming through. As we bring it in, we start to organize, transform, map, and harmonize so that we have all these different sources. How do we ensure that we are talking about the same thing? So a lot of the legwork into standing up the data cloud or a similar solution is to harmonize the data, making sure the attributes, the metadata, we're talking apples to apples, and start to get all of those items in alignment. And then we can get to the point where, okay, now that we have harmonized all these various sources, now we can actually move into the unification aspect. How do I get to a single view of an individual, such as myself or Jordan or Einstein, for example? We start to take those sources and start to basically prioritize and stack rank the different sources and evaluate how do we get to the right data for that individual. And it may vary based on your situations, and there's a number of things that go into it, and we'll get into a little bit more detail later. And so once we get to that unification, we continue to move on through, and then we can start getting into what does the data tell us, right? So what type of insights is it telling us? Plain and simple, based on historical information. What have we done? What is the customer informed us of, whether implicit or explicitly? We can look at that, and then we can start making data-driven decisions to inform downstream operations, processes, engagements, whether it be marketing, sales, service, or whatever the context is, because can't stress this enough. It is more than just a marketer's tool. You have the AI component where you can start to make some informed predictions. You can bring your own models as well. Just so we're clear, I'm not going to do a deep dive into the AI in this session, but I will make some references here and there. But you can start to get into or leveraging AI effectively within the data cloud. And so as we continue to move forward towards the activation, we can start to slice and dice and segment our individuals, analyze those, the segments and the various components as that data is constantly being refreshed, updated, added, and unified. We can start to identify things that we should be doing or things that maybe we need to start, easing off of because we're not getting the return on investment that we hoped for. And so again, by getting the data into that unified point of view, we can sift through a lot of the noise and start to make more informed decisions based off of that. And then once we move into the activation, there's a number of targets that we can put it into, whether you're activating through advertising, mobile, email, via the web, back into the CRM. You can even export and move it elsewhere, or if you need to do any sort of snapshots or for historical purposes, you can offload that and move it into a number of other external systems. And so that is at a high level how the data cloud works, from left to right. Moving on, and what the point of this is around listening to your data. And so looking at what are the likely points of conversion? Looking through, are we even tracking that? Do we have predefined milestones? If we do, great. And we can evaluate how effective they are. Are we missing some, or some not as informative or as useful as maybe we thought, or maybe they once were? So you can clean up your conversion process, evaluating whether or not we should do a loyalty program, or how effective our loyalty program is. Do we need different tiers based on the types of people that we're working with? If you are B2B, B2C, D2C, or various types of personas, we can evaluate what types of loyalty programs we can do and more effectively leverage those programs by having better data source through the data cloud. And then looking at the rewards and how we can, again, the data is going to tell us a lot if we pay attention to it. And that's what the data cloud helps us do. And so can we upsell or cross-sell to our existing customers? When is the right time? Based on, there's 2 points of view. There is when we as a business think they should, and then there's the reality of when our customers actually looking to replace something that they've been using for a while, or when do they need to expand or what they have and add additional products or services. Looking at the data can tell us that if we're able to connect that, and the data cloud allows you to do that. And then lastly, looking at recommendations for new customers based on current customer behavior. So lookalikes, whether we're doing that at an advertising perspective or even net new people, how can we segment and prioritize those newer individuals and provide a better customer experience that enhances their relationship with you, but also maximizes the opportunity from a business perspective on the types of products and services that we're providing. So a question that comes up often is CDP the same thing as an MDM? Can they do the same thing? The answer is they're not the same. CDP has traditionally been known as a marketing tool, whereas MDM is more IT led and driven. And so the big difference here is the CDP is connecting the dots, but it's not overriding anything. There's no survivorship component. It's not removing anything. There's no deletion whatsoever. It is really connecting the dots. The sources are untouched as they are, but we are able to unify and make sense of all the various data that's moving around. Whereas MDM is consolidating data. You're actively trying to find the best version, but removing the losers from that unification process. And so, to sum it up, CDP is mutable, meaning you can ignore some data points if you so choose. Whereas the MDM, it's immutable. Once it's sort of like set in stone until it's overwritten the next time, if that comes to that. So just to be clear, there is some inherent overlap in terms of there's a reason why people sometimes think they can do the same. There might be some aspects that each can do or emulate that the other does, but at the heart of it, they are not the same thing. They're not intended to be used in the same way. And so for the most part, you don't necessarily, for the most part, you don't need both in the same environment. Again, that is a subjective point of view. That is my point of view. There may be situations where that is applicable for you to have both, but that is something that each organization or business needs to determine. When if you come to that bridge to cross. So, the data cloud, right? And so as we start to move along, you'll see that I'm a big fan of pop culture in particular. Love the Marvel movies, and so the data cloud is kind of like the Infinity Gauntlet, as shown here in the movie. You get these different stones that have different powers, and you can think of each stone as your various data sources. And the data cloud can be the gauntlet where you start putting those pieces into place, put them into the right order, and that unlocks the ability and full potential of the data that you have, that your customers are providing you and sharing with you in exchange for a better experience, whatever that experience may be. And so, in short, we're trying to create an intentional and fluid customer experience for any and everyone that is engaging with us and that we want to engage with. And so there's quite a bit of power and potential with the data cloud when the data is organized and leveraged effectively. So what's in it for me? I'm going to start off with the customer. So we have their data, right? They've shared it for various reasons. They shared for a coupon or because they made a purchase, they used a service, whatever that may be. And so the only way this really works is if you put them at the center. And that is the whole point of the data cloud and similar CDP platforms, is to centralize our view of the customer. And so focus on what are we going to do with it? And from the customer perspective, how does this benefit me? Great, you understand me better, but am I actually going to get something out of it? So, for example, personalized experiences goes a little bit beyond just getting your first name and last name right or getting the correct address. Obviously, important things, but how are we going to personalize those experiences, right? And then consistency across channels, whether it be mobile or email, online. If you are a authenticated and known individual, are we treating you the same way regardless of how you're interacting with us? But also, if you're interacting with different people within the organization, there's sales, service, marketing, maybe loyalty is its own separate entity. Maybe there's other departments that are interacting with customers. How do we ensure we're working off the same view? Because historically, that is a fractured point of view. Each has their own system and points of view. Have we aligned internally to benefit not only the customer, but how effective we are as a business or an organization using that data for the benefit of our customers, which ultimately will improve their experience and should lead to more engagement with those people over time. Relevant and timeliness in terms of, are we capturing their preferences? Do we know when and how they want to be engaged? Are we paying attention to what we're doing in terms of, hey, I just bought this item. Why are you marketing to me the very same item 10 minutes later or the next day? So kind of looking at how are we, again, using the data for good, both to maximize the business, profitability, but also maximizing the customer experience so that they want to continue that relationship. It needs to be a two-way street. And so that also should lead to better customer service, because I'm not asking you, you get transferred 3 or 4 times as you find the right individual to talk to. You're not having to restate, all the laundry list of items that you need to authenticate yourself, because the data has been centralized and we're able to share that across our organization, so we can shorten that timeline, reduce the wait time, reduce the potential for frustration as somebody's trying to get support with or get answers to a particular question. which ultimately leads to a better experience. And so just again, reinforcing the people-centered, just people-centered in general, right? Putting them in the beginning or in the middle, start there, end there, from an interest, education, conversion, and support. You could easily, swap those out from a lead and prospect. Education, kind of think of it as a marketer. Conversion, maybe that's the sales team, and then 4 is support. Now again, this is just sort of a template, not the one size fit all, but it does address a lot of the more common scenarios that organizations are faced with and working with customers. And so how do we get that person, keep them in the center, but share the information across teams and lines so that we can more effectively support our customers' interests, their needs, their goals, whatever it is that drove them to interact with us in the first place. So what's in it for me from the company perspective, right? So again, it is a privilege, not we're not entitled to customer data. We are borrowing it. They are sharing it with us because there is some benefit to them. So how can we leverage that to not only support them, but improve how we support them, improve how we work? How can we remove the blind spots by connecting the data so that sales doesn't have a completely different profile than what marketing has, which leads to the historic never-ending joke of sales and marketing never agreeing. Part of that is because they have different objectives, different needs, and oftentimes completely different data points. So if they're working off totally different criteria, how are they ever going to align? It starts with the data. And so if we can do that, then it allows us to more effectively work together and align on goals. Again, they may still ultimately have some different needs, but if we're working off the same template, the same type of profile, we understand how we get from A to B and C and so on. It makes for a more cohesive working environment and can remove internal conflicts, but also streamline the process and the collaboration between teams, because it doesn't take as much time to align on how are we using the data. And so that then allows us to identify trends. The data, as I've said a few times already, let the data talk. Okay, the data can talk. If we have 15 different versions of Tom here, we need to get that data unified, clean it up, centralized, so that we can then use that effectively to identify trends that we can utilize to either optimize our processes, bring on new services or types of, or even, like I said, we'll walk back some things that maybe aren't as effective because everything has a shelf life. And so, again, improving personalization, we've covered that. I'm just going to move along. Respecting the preferences. You may not be ready on day one to be channel specific, but you kind of have to be to a degree in terms of if you have mobile, great, but is it one size fit all, or do you have different versions or tiers that allows them to opt in, opt down, opt out? If you're using one size fits all, it gets the job done, and you need it. If nothing else, you need the one size fits all, but you may be able to keep some people better engaged if they can be more selective in what they're being contacted for, when, how often. You can get pretty complex. So start simple if you don't have much in place, but consider looking at how you can leverage the data to more effectively interact and engage with individuals that you're supporting. And again, ultimately, the holy grail is that consistent experience, that consistency across channels, across preferences, timing, and all of that. That builds trust. That can build loyalty, and which can very quickly go away. And so, the more you do to, reinforce and show that you are a good steward of their data and a good partner in providing a service or product, you can more effectively retain those individuals, as a customer or whatever that relationship type may be. So what can Data Cloud do? Um, this list is not product specific features and functionality. These are these are use cases. I did went through a number of market reports and research and condensed down multiple sources for the top use cases for CDPs. And based on similarity, references, and the number of times I came across it, I created this condensed view of the top use cases. Number one, more than anything else, was optimizing and future proofing at scale, which is really what the big part of what the data cloud is intended to do, which is aligning and harmonizing that data so that we can get to a singular view of the individual, which allows us to scale up as we grow and evolve as an organization. So I'm not going to read through every single item here, but the whole point here is this is all data driven, right? And so if we get the data right, it's a lot easier to do the more important things like talking to a human being, interacting with each other, both internally and externally, using that data to inform our decisions. Again, this is not the end all be all. Can't do it all by itself. Still needs you to do something effective and meaningful with the data. But these are real world use cases that Data Cloud does support, and you can utilize to improve your business operations. So one of the things that it does, as I alluded to earlier, we're breaking down the walls. This cartoon is great because it implies that sales, marketing, and service are consistently in the same room, which again, it's a long running joke, but oftentimes they're not. But if the data is centralized and collaborated on at the organizational level, using or leveraging folks from each of those teams and any other relevant teams that have insight or access to customer data, it's a lot easier to figure out, hey, we've got an open support case with an individual. Maybe we don't want to market to them about that specific product, or maybe not at all, depending on the sensitivity, the escalation. That's a bit of a subjective topic, but it's good to know that, hey, marketing is getting ready to push out a campaign. There's an open support case. Maybe we want to pull them from this campaign. Maybe we don't want to email them today, or vice versa. You have service, working with an individual, and they can see that they're due for maintenance on a vehicle, or the shelf life on a product or service is coming to an end. Maybe they have an expiring contract or entitlement. You can look at that and you can recommend, hey, have you considered renewing, or have you considered upgrading? You're consistently kind of butting up against this. Maybe you would be better off with product B, right? So just simple things like that are easier when the data is in alignment and cleaned up. So just one of the I guess beneficial outcomes of aligning your data. So ethical personalization, as I mentioned, being a good steward, what are they getting out of sharing their data with you? So are we leveraging that effectively to give them a good experience? How much do we ask for? How much do we need? How are we putting that customer first, putting the customer at the center? Because without the customers, we don't have a business. So it's something that can't be ignored. So how are we leveraging that data to be as to really enhance their experience? Because things can get real can get creepy real quick. Okay, so, all right, I think we have a question. Jordan, do you want to throw that out?
Yes, we have a question from Michael in the audience. His question is, what are the major considerations in deploying Data Cloud with B2B versus B2C businesses? Is it equally valuable in both?
I do think they can be equally valuable to both sides. And if we're talking about two different businesses in different organizations versus departments within the same, I think if you're part of the same organization, it's a no-brainer, absolutely, because there's a good chance that you could have people who fall into both buckets. If you're talking about a pure B2B customer organization versus a B2C, then I think a big part of it comes down to the data. Do you have a lot of data? Do you have a lot of volume of data? Do you have the ability to are you centralized in the first place? I think data volume is a big piece, right? If you don't have a lot of data, it may not make as much sense to look at putting an investment into Data Cloud or a CDP. But if you have a lot of things going on, if you have a lot of different data sources, the complexity, I think, is a major lever that I would look at for making a decision whether or not it's the right fit for a B2B organization. Absolutely has a home, has a fit, but I think data volume and what type of use cases we're trying to solve. And as I mentioned, if you look at the use cases, if you have 3 or 4 of those use cases that are a big need, then it probably is starting to give you a bit more of a stronger fit. Hopefully that helps.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. All right. How to. A lot of this, the one I'm about to cover, is available through Trailhead and various resources. So I'm going to kind of move through this a little quickly, just make sure that we have time for any additional questions at the end and share some additional resources. So one of the main benefits of using the Data Cloud is identity resolution. So how strict or how loose do we want those rules to be? So you can be exact, you can be fuzzy. I think the more precise you are, the smaller the match rate, the lower the percentage of the match rate will be. Fuzzy will be bigger. So you need to kind of really map it out. Think through before you get in there. Really think through what really constitutes a unique individual, and trying to find that balance, because you don't want to be overly restrictive and you don't want to make it too loose, because they opposite ends of the same spectrum and they both present problems. So you may need to do some trial and error, but if you really plan it out up front, you can minimize some of the volatility in tweaking and fine-tuning your rule. So really strong strong use case for Data Cloud is really trying to consolidate and unify your individuals into a unique customer profile. We also have there is reconciliation rules that if we have a lot of different data sources, how do we prioritize which is really the stronger indicator that this is the better data source for this value? And so you can tweak that. You see here's last updated, most frequent, source priority. So you have some flexibility in terms of how we stack rank the right decisions on unifying that individual. So how do we pick the right value? Segmentation. So there's a lot of different components to the segmentation, but 2 of the main highlights are calculated insights and streaming insights. So calculated insights are more of a batch approach, higher data volumes, where you may need more time to process and churn through the various data that's coming in. So that's a better fit for the calculated insights, where you get into customer lifetime value, recency, frequency, monetary, or CLTV or LTV, RFM, all the acronyms. then it may be a better fit for calculated insights. If we're looking for something a little bit more near real time, then streaming insight is going to be the better fit depending on the scenario. Think of macro versus micro. Okay. Let me see here. It looks like we have another question here. What are the possible incentives that could be used to collect data from B2B businesses? So the way I would approach that would be, again, kind of thinking through the use cases. If you are focused on if you use account-based marketing as a methodology, ABM, oftentimes, even with the best of intentions, we're not always working from the same point of view. So that's one example where a data cloud could improve the effectiveness of that methodology to align on the right individuals. Are we talking to the same person? Are we talking to a different person from the same organization? That's one example. And then just kind of thinking through, how do we interact with those different organizations? If our main customer is B2B, if we're dealing with hundreds or thousands of organizations, what are their needs? And so what problems are we trying to solve? So if you're thinking about, if I could maybe ask, is there any additional context to incentives? Because I'm more or less addressing a specific problem. I don't know, Bashir, if I'm effectively addressing your question.
They added in an additional one afterwards. How do you effectively do B2B segmentation? Excuse me. RFM seems not effective model for B2B.
Yeah, and it may not be unless you have like a high volume sort of engagement or service, depending on what you're providing. So maybe that model, maybe none of the models work for you, right? But if we're thinking about from a segmentation perspective, who should we be targeting? Not if we think about from account engagement, aka Pardot, not all leads are created equal. So you can think about it from a scoring and grading perspective. We can put a score on what they're doing, but who are they? Do we want a C-level segment? Is there decision makers that maybe are in a different group? Thinking about the personas that we might be targeting, that could be a more effective use case for B2B scenario using Data Cloud. The main thing is, if we have the data and enough of it, there's a number of use cases that are both existent, but also maybe are unique to your organization, that you can use that data to create better segments that you can provide to your sales team or your service team, depending on what it is what problem you're trying to solve. So hopefully that's maybe a more effective answer.
Thank you.
Sure. So activation targets, as I mentioned earlier, is a wide range. This is just a sampling of the targets that we can push the data to once we have gone through the process of organizing, unifying, segmenting. We're at the, we're all the way to the right side of that process, that coming from in and out of Data Cloud. So again, Marketing Cloud, I just have this reference, but account engagement also works, not just the engagement or the old school Marketing Cloud, as some people refer to it as. So there's a number of things, and so the link here gives you a deeper dive into the types of activation targets, and there's a number of activation partners that you can work with, from an advertising perspective as well. There's a lot of opportunity to take that unified data and move it into other systems, or directly engage with individuals in whether sales, marketing, service, or other aspects of your relationship with those individuals. So from a resource perspective, a couple of things. Kind of circling back, started off with a little reference to AI. I'm going to see us close this out with a little AI reference. There's a lot of hype and excitement around AI. AI is here to stay, and it is something that we can use as businesses and organizations, but it cannot replace your data. It cannot replace you. It is here to enhance that data. So what I mean by that, it's not going to replace you, but people with the AI skills are going to be the ones that are going to find success more often. The AI is can't improve bad data, but good data can improve AI. So AI can't do it by itself. Is the bottom line. You need somebody who understands the potential and functionality of the AI and understands the data, because you need somebody at the wheel to make informed decisions. AI just like we say in marketing, set it and forget it, doesn't work with AI any better than it did in marketing. And so if you just flip the switch, I get an AI without any planning or thought, probably not going to be worth your investment. But if you plan for it, it's going to be much more effective. Same with data. Just, hey, throw all the data in this big table. Just let's throw our data in the data warehouse. We'll figure it out later. Nobody ever goes back and fixes that, or not as quickly as they say they will. So plan ahead, and you'll find greater success. And the whole point of this is, if you really want to take full advantage of the possibilities of AI, you need to start with your data, because it's not going to get there by itself. Just a number of acronyms that some acronyms I mentioned, some I didn't, but some that may come up. So just this is in the deck. You can access it later. Maybe nothing new, but hopefully something helpful if this is the first time seeing it. All of these resources, most of these are a lot of these are Salesforce specific resources, but there's also some blogs, as well as industry resources that can give you some inspiration for how you might be able to use Data Cloud. So CDP Institute is an agnostic organization. It's not aligned with any one specific vendor, to my knowledge, and so it has a lot of different inputs and points of view around how to effectively use CDP-like software. And so you may find some real-world examples of how that maybe align to your organization that you can use Data Cloud to solve. So in summary, with Data Cloud, it's put people first. That is the whole point. If you do that, you're going to find greater success and effectiveness with the tool. Prioritize your use cases. You maybe don't need to do all of them in the first go. Maybe some aren't as effective as you hope, but prioritize the ones that are going to be that are the major movers, whether it's solving a pain point or something that is business critical. Prioritize those. I don't think that's a revolutionary point of view, but I do think it is important to remind, hey, let's get it right. Start right, end right. Okay, and then collaborating and activation. That is both internally aligning on what a unified profile looks like, what problems we're trying to solve, and then also with the data in your customers. What are they telling you? If we're making just blanket decisions without actually leveraging the data, then you're just guessing. So look at the data, work with other leaders within the organization that understand how each aspect of the business are working with customers, and figure out how to align on that and better activate that, so that we're all working from the same point of view. So if there are any additional questions, I am happy to take it in the 38 seconds we have.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to get to questions. It will kick us out in 30 seconds to move to the next session. But thank you so much, Chris. This was an amazing session. As a reminder, everybody, the recording of this will be available on demand within 24 hours. But thank you all. Hope you have a good rest of your March dreaming.
Thank you again. Take care.